We are brought to you by Boss Bears Supplements. That's Boss Bears Supplements at bossbears.co. Hard work, consistency, and determination are difficult to sustain when your mind and body can't keep up. Fuel your body with what it needs to perform like a boss. Whether you're closing deals, pitching a new business idea, or training in the gym, Boss Bears take your hustle to the next level. Our ingredients are the highest quality with potency and serving sizes that are the gold standard in the industry. Check out all of Boss Bear's products at bossbears.co. They have apple cider vinegar gummies. They have ashwagandha. They have all kinds of supplements in delicious gummy form. They also have them in pill form if you don't want the gummies. I prefer the gummies. They are delicious, and I've tried the apple cider vinegar. They are very good. Use code Nicky at checkout to save 10%. That's bossbears.co, code Nicky. We are brought to you by Clout Power Supplements. That's KLOUTPWR.com. So here I have the protein, the Cravings protein from Clout. This one is the salted caramel. This is some of the best protein that I've ever had in my life. It's actually delicious. I like the salted caramel and the cinnamon swirl are my two favorites. Also, their pre-workouts are amazing. So they have the Karma Nootropic pre-workout. It's a nootropic and focused pre-workout. It's a lower stimulant formula, zero itch formula. It has 4 trademark ingredients, and has fully dosed ingredients. So far, the Arctic Cherry is probably my favorite of the Karma pre-workout. Also, try the Nero Aminos from them. And also the High Stimulant Mamba is some of my favorite too. And I really like the Arctic Cherry of that one. So go to cloutpower.com and use code Nicky to save 15%. KLOUTPWR.com. Code Nicky to save 15%. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Nicky Free Podcast. We're here with Joanie Nicke, and she is a bikini competitor. And Joanie, how are you today?
I'm good.
Good. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So we'll just start with, so you've been doing bikini competition for how long now?
My first competition was in 2017.
2017. Okay. And what was it that got you into that?
Oh, that's a long story.
Like, yeah, what was
We're
it?
jumping right in.
Yeah. What was it that got you interested in bikini competition?
Recovering from my eating disorder.
So that's actually that's a kind of a normal thing with this, actually.
Yeah.
I've met a few people that, do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I have some friends who've recovered from eating disorders. So
Yeah. So, it's interesting because with the sport, I see it going two ways with people. Like, either you see people that go into it and they end up finding something that helps them to kind of channel a lot of those things that you get with an eating disorder, or you find sort of the opposite sometimes.
Where it helps them get out of the eating disorder.
Yeah, so people can develop people can develop some when they get into it, whereas some people it's really it's helpful. So for me, I was diagnosed with anorexia in 2016. This is at my first career, by the way. I was in high-level policy and politics for...
really?
Yeah.
What did you do in politics?
I was a lobbyist and in government affairs for the big tech industry.
Oh, my God.
I represented them from Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and then all the way over to Illinois.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was... I have a political science degree,
Yeah.
and I was married, and I had my daughter at the time, and it was just a ton of stuff going on.
Dang.
And with eating disorders, oftentimes you find that they are mostly control and coping mechanisms.
Right.
So when everything's kind of out of control, like that's when
They all come down to control?
To a certain degree. They're like coping and control.
Okay.
And so for me, it's something that, after years of therapy and all that kind of stuff, I've realized I probably had it my entire life, but I was officially diagnosed with it when I hit rock bottom. It was the last day of legislative session, and I came down the stairs of my home to do my daughter's hair and then
Yeah.
head off to work. And when I was walking down the stairs, I blacked out.
Whoa.
And then when I was doing her hair, I kept passing out. And I still tried to.
Well, and I don't know people if they realize that I believe anorexia is actually the most dangerous psychological disorder as far as like deaths.
Well, see, this is the thing that I found with any eating disorder. You can deny it. It's very
Right.
easy, especially because, like, for example,
You just pretend it doesn't happen.
Well, and since you're coping with certain things, right? So
Right.
you have a season where it's like chaos, and you go through, like, for me, that last bout with it was kind of like from December until about April. And it got to the point where I was at my lowest. I was 99 pounds and I'm 5'7".
Dang.
And I had what I was having at the time was like one V8 and one Kind bar every couple of days. So that wasn't
was
even
it.
every day. It was every couple of days. But if you think about it, in my profession and the way my life was set up, it was kind of perfect for me to hide because I was a lobbyist. I was busy all the time. I was constantly on
So
the go.
workaholic, you could kind of hide it in that.
Yeah, and people really didn't notice, like, for example, when other lobbyists would be taking lunch breaks instead of, like, manning the doors for legislators when they come out so you can grab them and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of perfect for that because I didn't need to take a lunch break. So I would tell them, oh, no, you're good. I got it. And then I would stay.
So you're in this kind of high performance, high pressure job anyway.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of just hide it in that.
Yeah, and then it was also fairly simple to hide it from my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time, because I would leave for work and I would be gone. Like, I would leave at 5 a.m, and if the legislature was still on, or if they were still on the floor, I wouldn't come home sometimes until like midnight, maybe even 3 a.m. Sometimes they pull all-nighters. So he had no idea that I wasn't eating. Yeah.
So what was it? Was it the passing out and stuff? What was it that kind of got you to seek help finally?
So it was that day. It was the last day of legislative session in 2016, and I still tried to leave after passing out. I still tried to get in my car.
Did somebody else help you, or was this like you finally coming to terms with it?
So that day, it was me realizing that I physically couldn't continue going. I was driving and I realized that I couldn't drive. So I pulled over to the side of the road and I rolled down my window. My ex-husband was following me and I just looked at him and I said, I need help. We went to the ER after that.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was kind of, I couldn't hide it from him anymore, like in the ER. And once you're diagnosed, like, it's kind of there. So,
right. It was kind of like you get sunlight on the situation and then there's no going back. It's,
yeah. And then I came out public. I talk so freely about it now, but I came out public about it in an all women's weekend called Strong Camp, put on by Strong Fitness magazine.
Yeah.
And originally I did that and it wasn't because I thought that I would be able to help anybody else. I mean, that's of course been a wonderful
part of it now.
Yeah. But originally the reason why I became public about it was just it was the accountability piece on my part. I couldn't go back. I couldn't continue to deny it. If I was
you wanted to get it all out. Okay.
Then there was no going back.
Right.
But that's how, to your original question, that's how I found bodybuilding, because I was in a program. They wanted to put me for my eating disorder, and they wanted to put me in an inpatient program. And I couldn't do that with my job, with my daughter, that kind of stuff. So I sort of created my own program. And that was my friend Amy Jo. I had known her since college. She opened up a fitness studio, which I actually work out of now, called Transformation Fitness in Lacey, Washington. And I started going to her for nutrition. So she gave me nutrition plans and was helping me there.
Right. So when you're down in that low body weight, that's really important for them to start giving you like high levels of calories, right? And I don't know much about it, but is there like a protocol where they don't let you move a lot and you just have to eat and eat and
Well, so Amy baby stepped me, to be honest.
okay.
She baby stepped me. Like, I told her, I was very honest with her when I sat down with her, that I had been diagnosed with anorexia and what I was currently eating. At that point, what I was currently eating a day was a V8, a Kind bar, and an Inshore.
Yeah. That's
And
just crazy.
she said that she was going to baby step me, but then she gave me the first meal plan, and I almost freaked out because it was like meal one, and then it was like a snack, and then it was meal two, and then
Yeah.
snack, and I'm just
Like
like,
more food than you're used to eating.
yeah.
So now, what does your meal plan look like now compared to? Is it quite different? Like
Yeah.
you're used to the meal plan thing and
Over the years, it has definitely
fully recovered and
gotten
everything.
difference. Well, I don't actually. That's a good point.
There's
I
never.
don't believe that you're ever fully recovered.
Yeah.
And I feel like oftentimes people that say they've recovered, maybe they had disordered eating patterns, but disordered eating patterns and an eating disorder, like an actual diagnosed eating disorder, in my mind are two completely separate things.
Right.
Because like if you think about it, like with alcoholism, for example, right?
It never goes away.
And no, it's an active choice, right? You wouldn't
Right.
just put a beer in front of an alcoholic and say you're clearly not recovered because you can't drink it and be
Yeah.
okay. For me, it's a similar thing to eating disorders. I still have those, urges and
To not eat or to.
yeah. And when things get, we found actually. So my current
How do you
coach,
fight against that?
It's mental.
You just have to force the. Is it just like the discipline of going through the patterns and habits that you've created that are good?
Yeah, and I would say bodybuilding has definitely helped a ton.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding, and then I don't consider myself a religious person,
Yeah.
because there's a whole other thing there, but I consider myself a spiritual person.
Yeah.
And I found God again and of my relationship with God. So
So that's helped a lot
I think
too.
it's been a combination of a lot of those things. And with bodybuilding, specific to bodybuilding, what's been so wonderful about it is every season has a purpose.
Yes.
So when I first started, I had been in my recovering process. And clearly, like when I got on stage for my first show, it was, you need to gain more muscle all around. Like I really did not have a lot at that point.
Right,
I
right.
had more than when I started.
Yeah.
So then over the years, I've had building phases and I've had, of course, cuts because I've done so many different shows and everything. But I find that the building phases are the hardest for
Right.
me. And that's when I really need to focus in on why I'm eating like that.
And is that when
Like,
you're
it's a
pushing
purpose.
calories? It kind of creeps you out a little bit, probably.
Yeah, and the weight. Like even though, so I'm a nutrition coach myself. I'm a personal trainer now. I completely like switched careers. Like there's full fast forward, but
Not into politics anymore.
not into politics. I left politics in 2019
Yeah.
and decided to do what I love. I call it my passion profession, but not everybody. One thing I have to be very careful about with my clients, most of them are lifestyle. They're not competitors. And
So you don't want to push them too much or like.
well, for in terms of like the nutrition side of things, like it's really hard for people to understand. Like I always try and explain, especially to women, but to some men too, not to go off the weight on the scale because the scale is really, your weight is really just a mathematical equation that includes your body water, your muscle mass, your bones, your organs, but then also your body fat. And oftentimes what people do is they take that number on the scale and they equate it to some emotion, to some kind of self-worth,
Right.
to how they look in the mirror, or they'll flat out equate it to body fat when you can't. And I can very I can coach people with that, but I have to be very careful with myself because in my building phases, when that number on the scale starts to come up, and this last one,
It just freaks you out a little bit.
yeah, so I competed in NPC Universe in New York in July of last year, and then I went into a building phase.
Yeah.
And
Which is so necessary.
it
right?
was absolutely necessary,
Yeah.
and I knew it. I was more bought into it than ever before because I saw the stage shots and like I got the feedback from the judges, and it was the biggest show I'd ever done. But then as the building phase continued and the weight continued to go up, it was definitely a battle. And then we're looking for when I step on stage again, because I'm going to be competing again this year. We're hoping to have, because I'm a natural competitor, so we're hoping for my stage weight to be up by like 2 to 3 pounds, maybe.
Right.
Which
compared
that's
to
a
the
lot.
last show. Yeah. So
That's
that's a lot of muscle because you're going to be cut at the time too, right?
Yeah, cut and dry.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's something that you still battle with, or I still battle with, like in my.
So it's never
phases.
really goes away, right? Like,
No, but you have to. That's where you have to be aware, and you have to be, it's battling demons, so to speak. Like,
it really is, right?
When it starts to come in, and when I start to have those feelings, I legitimately have to stop myself.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, what are you feeling? First, recognize what are you feeling? Recognize that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then why are you feeling that way? And point it to why am I feeling that way? And if it is because the number on the scale or whatever, then it's like, okay. And then I remind myself of my why. Well, that number has to go up because my goal is to build muscle because of this sport, and my goal is to get my pro card, and I want to compete.
Yeah.
I have to walk myself through that sometimes.
So do you ever kind of look at it as like an old you versus a new you, like tell the old you to shut up, kind of? Like,
yeah, very much so.
Or like not let the old you kind of take over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I think of it as a lot sometimes.
It's like the unhealed version of me,
Yes, and so the healed you has to fight with it. Yeah.
The healed me has to say, or the healing, because I always feel like
always
I'm
healing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never done. It's never done.
It's never done. You're always a work in progress.
I love that. Yeah.
I totally went down a completely different path.
No. That's always how it goes on here. No, that's really cool. We have had quite a few, I think, people that got into bikini competition or even bodybuilders, I think, that maybe started with either an eating disorder or probably like body dysmorphia type things. And so it makes sense. Like even the one, she has a pro card, Tiana Weymouth. She's only 18, but that was kind of what happened with her. It was like she had an anorexia, had an eating disorder, and it was through bikini and the meal planning that she was able to fight out of it. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like similar. She was so surprised, like when she realized, like, wow, I'm eating Rice Krispie treats and I'm eating, when you're eating all this food and you're staying lean. And so it was like this, like a healing thing too for her. Like, I think a lot of people are surprised at how much food you actually need to eat. And when people have bad eating habits, they're usually like starving themselves and like doing a lot of unhealthy behaviors, thinking they're trying to like get this certain look or whatever, and it's not actually how you achieve that look that you want.
Right. Well, and even at my smallest weight, I was a higher body fat percentage.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing.
I had no muscle.
You're starving yourself. You're basically making yourself like skinny fat a lot.
I had absolutely no muscle.
Yeah.
Like whatsoever. So my body fat percentage was higher.
That isn't
than
amazing.
What my body fat percentage is even when I'm building.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's probably just work constantly to just like enjoy the process, like your body how it is, but you probably feel better about yourself now than ever before, huh?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I fought through a lot.
You start getting a good body image and feeling good about yourself.
Well, the body image sometimes still comes into play.
Always, right?
Yeah, and it's also because now what I do for a living after I left politics, and then now I do personal training, coaching, and nutritional consulting.
Right.
I'm in a fitness studio.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows that I'm a bodybuilder too.
So you're kind of held to a standard even.
Yeah, and so it's hard for lifestyle people to see you get down to shredded, and it's one of two things. Like as you're coming down for a show, people start to comment. They're like, "Oh, you're looking great. Oh, you look wonderful." Or they don't realize that you feel like crap.
Like, you feel like shit.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's what Mark told me. He's like, if you feel good, you're probably not looking good.
Yeah.
I'm like, so in the next few weeks, I need to start feeling like shit and get used to it.
Your energy will start to go down.
Yeah.
But then there's some that when you get to that level of leanness, they think that that's extreme. You look gaunt, like they get scared by it.
They'll make comments in that sense too.
They make comments there. But then also when you come out of a show and you start coming up, and like you still are a very fit individual.
But you miss those cuts or
well,
those
but then
shreds.
they'll make comments like they know. So, for example, at Universe, my greatest feedback was that I needed still to grow my glutes more, and I'm like, okay, I've been told this since 2017. Like, I've really got to growing my glutes.
Yeah.
And I saw the stage shots where it was next to the girl that got her that earned her pro card. She totally earned it.
So you got
and when
it.
I saw it next to her, I'm like, wow, yeah, of course
so
I do.
it's still a lot of work.
But when I got back, everybody at the fitness studio knew that that's what I was doing. I knew that that was my focus. And so then as my build continued, as the months went on, the comments started, and it's like, look at that. But then it's also them not understanding how words can get messed up in my brain.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like the thick booty is like a big thing now, and they'll be like, girl, you thick, and saying stuff like that. And I'm like,
and that
I don't want to
freaks
be
you out a little bit.
thick. You know, like it's that kind of
Still.
stuff where it's meant as compliments. I'm sure all of them mean it as compliments, but that's also.
But it's almost like an over fixation on your body and your form.
Yeah.
And it comes with probably what you're doing now.
Right.
But it might not be healthy for someone that that
yeah.
had an eating disorder or that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we all in this kind of industry are super critical of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like you just gotta I don't know, not listen to that stuff, you know, not worry about it's hard, I'm sure.
It is. Yeah, it's hard, but again, it's also, stuff that pushes you like that. It makes you stronger. It highlights for me stuff I need to work on too, which boundaries.
Oh yeah, saying no is huge.
Saying no.
Yeah.
But then also
not people pleasing.
Yeah, and letting people know, like being communicative, right? Letting people know like when they've said certain things that, hey, that crosses a line with me.
Yeah, and you really can do that. Like
yeah,
they don't
it's
have
okay.
a right just because that's your job doesn't mean that they have a right to do that. Like
right.
It is weird though. You have to you'll get so many compliments or we always seem to zero in on the negative stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'll get so many comments on putting up these videos or short clips and then you'll see one bad one and it's it's not even worth reading it because it's it's so stupid. We had I was a massage therapist and she was talking about an OnlyFans, joking around about it, and she did some math on it and she totally did the math horrible. She said something that was just way off and I didn't even catch it, but so many people commented oh, your math's off, you guys are fucking idiots and all that. People I'm just
they see
damn,
one thing and they're boom, just go in for it.
I'm oh my god, you guys are savages on here. But so that's the thing, you can't worry too much about that stuff. I feel you just gotta keep doing it for you, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I've definitely found community in the bodybuilding world.
It's huge.
Not only so the longer I've been in it, the more my reach has sort of expanded. But I equate it very interestingly to lobbying because you think that if you look at the number of registered lobbyists, for example, there's hundreds and hundreds, and you can look them all up on the Public Disclosure Commission, the PDC. It's all there. By the way, my last name was Deutsch when I was a lobbyist because that was my married name, and I went back to my maiden name. So if anybody wants to look that up, you can. But anyway, there's hundreds and hundreds of registered lobbyists, but the actual lobbying core in Olympia specifically, but also in other capitals like Salem and, anyway, is actually very small. It's a close-knit, small group.
Okay.
That's the same thing with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest, even just speaking of the Pacific Northwest, you have, you look at all the shows and you look at the numbers of competitors that are in the shows and all that kind of stuff, but then you look at the community of it, and it's actually a pretty small, close-knit community of the promoters, the judges, and then those of us that have been in it for a long time that really want to see it grow and build. You find the people with a passion, and it's like a family. I
find it to be
cool.
the best community.
It is.
Just everybody so pushes each other to be better, and it's I don't know, you never find a community. And also I think because so many people have histories of eating disorder, or so many people are coming from drug addictions or alcohol addictions, and they found either like you said, religion or bodybuilding or a combination of both or whatever it's been that's kind of helped them fight through that. And so now they have this new thing that they put their energy and passion in. And there really is something like, it's like a group that pushes each other really hard and holds each other accountable. So it's kind of like you start whining or you start like complaining too much. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for that.
Right.
But there's still like this like grace that everybody gives each other because they know everybody's come from something tough or they wouldn't be doing this.
Right,
Those
exactly.
like those demons you're talking
Everybody
about.
has a story. Everybody has a
So
story.
there's kind of this love and compassion in it at the same time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like so it's like we're tough on each other, but also like super great. There's a grace. You know what I mean? Or that's what I found in it.
Yeah,
so.
it's like a family, and it's so as I did my first national show in 2020. I did Masters Nationals in 2020, and then in 2021 I did the Ben Weider Natural, which was in DC. And then last year I did Universe in New York.
Wow. How was that going to New York? Had you ever been?
So I've been to New York before, but I'd never been to Universe before. And that's like the largest, and it's a tough show. It's NBC Universe, for crying out loud. Like, it's a tough
that's a
show.
big deal. Huh?
But what's interesting is some of the women that I met in 2020 at Masters Nationals, I've seen them again. Like, I saw them again in DC. And then one gal I met in DC, she went out and she came and did the Tangy show last year. And then she went and she did Universe. And I saw her in Universe, and it was like a friendly face. And so then now that I'm doing the national level shows too, and I've been doing them for a while, you also have that level of community where we keep in touch with each other,
reaching out to more places with the community.
Yeah,
right?
and we keep in touch with each other over like social media and that sort of thing. But to have those people when you're at those really huge national shows,
just that one person that you
face, and you know that you can give each other a hug and that you're genuinely there for them, and like they actually have your back too. They're not going to tell you tanning is at a different time than tanning really is.
Is there
or
any...
like something like
Does
that.
some of that shady stuff happen sometimes in
It
shows
happened
too?
to me
Like
in
really a
DC.
lot of backstabbing stuff?
Yeah, I was shocked at what happened to me in DC, actually, to be honest.
Really?
It was a gal, and I won't say her name because that's neither here nor there, but she was in two of the same classes as me. And my coach wasn't there. I was there by myself backstage, and they had called for my class for glazing and then to line up. And I thought I had heard it, and she was walking by, and I was like, oh, did they call for it? And she goes, no, they didn't. And she went back. And so I sat there, and then I looked around, and like all the women from my class
You're
were
like,
there,
oh, they did.
And I was like, wait a minute. And I walked back, and I nearly missed my class.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's some weird like Tanya Harding type shit, right? Like,
yeah, I
like
guess
some
so.
of that weird like
I guess so.
that competitive, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I guess so. But that's the only time. I mean, that's the worst story that I have is that one. Most of the time, I haven't dealt with any of that kind of stuff backstage. Actually, at Universe, I was back there with my coach, and one woman started talking with me, and I'm very friendly. Like, I'm also kind of more of a mom backstage than anything else. Like, I always want to take care of people.
Okay,
rather than taking care of myself. Anyway, I was chatting with her. I had just met her, and 5 minutes later, she's like, "Are you going to Orlando next week? Do you want to be my roommate?" Like, immediately
so like
wanted
making
to
these
be
good
friends.
connections.
Like, so that usually it's that.
That's fun.
And it's not the other. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You're getting more experiences like that than the other one. Yeah, those are just people that are like insecure. They have to like try to take shortcuts to like. It's weird. Yeah, you do run into that sometimes.
Yeah, and ultimately it didn't really work out for her either. I mean, she didn't earn her pro card there, so it's what good did that do?
I don't think that stuff ever works out in the long run because you'll get that kind of reputation and people will. They're not gonna. It's not gonna last very long if you're kind of like that, like cutthroat like that. So what was it like working in politics? Because that is crazy.
Yeah. So I'm from Eastern Washington originally.
Yeah.
And in politics, it is all about who you know.
What got you so into that?
Okay. So,
just always been into it?
No. So actually, when you're a kid and they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
So they'd ask me that, and my answer to that question was always very broad. I always wanted to help people. Like,
Yes.
I want to help people. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew I wanted to help people. And it was when I was in high school, and a history teacher of mine pulled me aside after class one day, and basically, long story short, he said, you say you want to help people. And he's like, what is the greatest way to help people other than the laws that govern them? You can help the most people by working with the laws that govern them. And I was like, okay, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm doing.
You just kind of got pushed into it. I was like,
all right, that's where I'm going. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I went to St. Martin's. It was college when I went there.
Yeah.
Got my political science degree. And then got an internship with the Secretary of State's office.
Right.
Was hired before I graduated with the Secretary of State's office, and then I worked my butt off. Like, from there, it was...
Just wanted to be good at it.
Yeah, so it was everything from, I was a spokesperson for statewide elected officials. I was a communications director for the Secretary of State at one point.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, and then I got a job with a contract lobbying firm, and then was hired with different associations, and then found myself with the tech industry, and I was the hardest worker in the room. I was always no matter what, I was always going to be the hardest worker in the room. You just
had that in you.
Well, yeah, and not only did I want to do well for my clients, for the people that I represented, for the companies that I represented, but it was also, lobbying is also about your reputation. And people have, like, it's about who you know, but it's also about you. So if you have a reputation for being a backstabber, if you have a reputation for being a liar or untrustworthy, you're probably not going to go very far or do very well. And
so you tried to have ethics.
Yeah. So I had a reputation, and as some people probably are rolling their eyes and that sort of thing, like...
Well, because you hear lobbyists in general, it's like ethics, money and power. That's a big topic.
That is connected. Yeah. That is connected.
But
and
what
I
you
would
were
do
doing...
giving plans and stuff like that. And that's a lot of strategic thinking and that sort of thing. And, you can argue one way or another. And there's... You can argue all over that. I won't even get into that. But at the end of the day...
it's part of it.
What I felt really good about for myself is that every person that I worked with, from other lobbyists to legislators to elected officials to members of Congress, you would ask them about me, and not once would somebody say that she was untrustworthy or that she stabbed somebody in the back. Or,
so ethics, work ethic,
honesty.
Those are things that really mean a lot to you.
Yeah.
Which is a good quality to have. Yeah.
But ultimately, with politics, and it was cutthroat. I mean, too, it was also, it's a very cutthroat industry. It was also still very male dominant and driven.
So it was tough being female in
It was tough
field?
being, well, and young. Like, I started when I was 19. And so it was tough. And it also, some of the older women that were in there, you have to imagine, they got into politics at probably a much tougher time than even when I did.
Oh, yeah. And so they had some chips on their shoulder.
Exactly. So some of them weren't the nicest, but then some of them would take you under their wing. And you had to be respectful. It was also about respect. Like, showing respect for people that had been there and, paying your dues sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Ultimately, what got me out of it, because I was really good at it.
It's almost like the universe set you on the path to where you're at now.
I agree, actually. I agree. And it seemed really hard, but there was a point where when I was still I had already started bodybuilding, I had already competed for a while.
But you were kind of still in politics at the time?
I was still in politics, so I started competing in 2017, and I left politics in April of 2019.
Okay.
And it was a bunch of things that were happening in my life. I was going through divorce. I was making major life changes. I already had my personal training certification and my nutritional certification. My daughter was getting older, and she's 11 now, but she was starting to get to the point where she was calling me California Mom. Because
not enough time.
And when I represented big tech, I was always down in California.
Right.
Because a lot of their headquarters are down in California, and even though I was representing them in state governments in the Pacific Northwest, but then also way into the Midwest. Oftentimes you had to go down to some of their HQs for meetings and for, seeing their campuses and hearing from their experts on policies and things like that. So, and plus I was Seattle. So Seattle to LA is much faster of a flight than my counterparts in other parts of the country. So they would often send me because it was a lot
So you're quick,
faster.
right there. Yep.
Yeah. So I was gone. And when my kiddos started calling me California mom, it was also another thing. It's like, I want to do what I love. But then, of course, I left and started a fitness career at a time right when COVID hit. And then the gyms got shut down.
That had to be tough.
Yeah. But I actually, my former career came into play to help get the gyms back open. So that was really nice.
Yeah. What did you think of all that? Like, do you think we made the right moves there? Or do you think gyms should have been open? Or like...
Well... So
it's tough to say at the
worked
beginning.
with the governor's office and the Department of Health to actually create frameworks and policies to allow for us to reopen.
Since it's like a health-based thing, you think it should almost
help. I won't.
It's a tough one. Right?
It was tough going through it because you also have to think like, so I was trying at the time. I was trying to get, originally it was just trying to, when hairdressers were allowed to open one-on-one hairdressing, right?
Yep.
And it's like, well, why can't one-on-one personal training? Well, they hadn't heard of that. Like, they hadn't thought about that, really.
Right.
And then it was also the fitness industry. So another thing that was interesting at that time was the fitness industry as a whole. There's so many facets to it. There's big gyms versus little gyms. There's bodybuilding versus jiu-jitsu. There's gymnastics versus, boxing. Like, there's all these different facets.
Levels of like how many people are near each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was not a single entity that represented the fitness industry. So when the governor's office and the Department of Health were looking to, like, oftentimes they look to lobbyists then at that point that represent certain businesses or industries. And the fitness industry didn't have anybody. So when I called, because I knew certain people, when I called, it was, okay, I created kind of like an ad hoc sort of advisory group of people to create some of these policies to help us reopen. And I know that the policies weren't perfect by any means, and I didn't necessarily always agree with them, but in my mind...
But you did what you could.
Exactly. In my mind, getting people back to work, getting people to be able to come back in and actually come to a gym was better than it being completely shut down. Like, allow for us to operate on some level.
So at that point, it was about getting any kind of...
Well,
move the needle any little bit.
Yeah, and then, of course, it was tough for everybody. It was tough.
Yeah, that was a wild time.
It was tough for everybody. But one thing I am proud of myself for is that I switched careers so massively at such a harsh time in really history.
During the hardest time, to do it.
And I'm still here.
Yeah.
And at a time when a lot of gyms were going under, when a lot of fitness professionals were going under. And you
stayed afloat as an entrepreneur.
Not only did I stay afloat, but I grew my business.
Yeah.
And again, I think that comes back to sort of my philosophy that I even had when I was lobbying.
Yep.
Be honest, be truthful, be the hardest worker in the room.
Yeah.
Pray.
I love that.
And things eventually things will work out.
Yeah.
They'll work out. I mean, my life is far from perfect
You just have to keep going when it gets really hard, right?
If it means something to you.
Yeah.
If it really, truly means something to you.
Those are the hardest times, is like when you feel like giving up, but you just can't,
And I've had times, especially during COVID, I had times, I was denied unemployment at a certain point because they still had me, ESD, the Employment Security Department, still had me as a lobbyist. So they had my... They had my income at a certain level. And it was at a time when they were inundated with calls, so you couldn't get through. So there was about 3 months where I had no way of making money then at that point because I wasn't lobbying, but the gyms were shut down. So I had zero income coming in for 3
So what did you do?
months.
Pray.
Pray, credit cards.
That's the scary part. Then you got to pay them off later.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where it's like, I not only then, But then even when I was still growing my business, and then I had to move from my home to my apartment.
Right.
And I went from a 6-figure income down to a fraction of that, like a small fraction of that.
Right.
Which I'm doing what I love, so it's, I'm more passionate about it than ever. So there's the trade-off there. But
right.
then there were times, like legitimately, even even a couple of months ago, there was times when I was on my knees, like praying to God, like, am I supposed to keep doing this?
Yeah.
Or is this your way of telling me I need to go back to politics, even though I was miserable? Like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? And eventually stay the course, and over the course of time, things have worked out.
The needle will start moving again. Yeah.
Or not even the needle moving, but like little glimpses into certain things.
Good things, few good things that just give you enough to keep hanging on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets pretty dark sometimes when you're trying to do something that's valuable, like you said, or that you're passionate about.
But then look at where we're at in our economy right now. Like,
it's really bad.
Not a lot of people have what you would call disposable income. And if you think about it, and they're thinking about, like, am I going to keep my electricity on, and am I going to
they have to start making hard decisions, right?
Or am I going to pay for my personal trainer?
Oof, that's
and
tough.
My nutritional coach. Oftentimes they're going to cut some of that stuff out, which that's my business now. So
I found that a lot lately. It's like people are having hard, they used to be able to do that stuff, and now they don't have money for that right now.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that I know that I've shifted with a lot of my clients, because I love for my clients to be open with me. Like, I was joking with one of my clients the other night. Actually, I sent her a reel over Instagram.
Yeah.
Where it's like with my clients, it's like no information is too much information. Like, tell me about your stress, tell me about your bowel movements. I don't care. Like, like the more information I know. And so with my clients, they know that with me, they can tell me stuff. And so if it's a financial issue,
they can tell you.
I try and talk to them. Okay, well, let's figure out, like, if you're doing nutrition and training with me, is there a way where maybe you can do training on your own for a little while, and let's keep nutrition going and have you do it every 2 weeks rather than every week?
Yeah.
Like, I try and come up with solutions for them so they can continue to come in and they continue to get the service. It will still hit me in the pocketbook, but
because it's an investment in themselves that they want to make, but with the economy right now, it's hard.
Yeah, definitely.
So
a lot of people are hurting right now, but you're seeing that in bodybuilding.
Big
too.
time. Yeah, so as a person that was in politics, like what do you think's even going on with that? What do you attribute it to? Just like
I'm not in politics anymore.
Yeah, but do you think it's like what caused this? Do you think it was like all the COVID relief stuff, and now we're kind of just paying for it?
I think there's a combination of a lot of things. Yeah, I think there's also reverberations of policies. Like, you also have to understand to a certain extent, I'm not trying to excuse anything, and I'm not saying this is always the way that it is, but sometimes if you look at the people that are making the policies, they're not the people on the front lines.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they have in their mind what they think is logical, but when you apply that to real world, or put it in a real world application, it doesn't work, or it has some of these implications that they don't realize or understand, or they can't anticipate.
Right.
And so I think it's a combination of course, I'm trying to be a little bit politically correct here without upsetting a ton of people, but I think it's a combination. I don't think that there's one straight answer. I think it's a combination of implications that maybe were unintended, and I think it's a combination of probably some things where I wouldn't necessarily agree with the political decisions that were made, or even the philosophy of it.
Right, because I think we're all definitely feeling it now. And I think it kind of crept up on us because it seemed like things were good, and then all of a sudden you just started noticing it, like, whoa, like my paycheck's less, even though I just got a raise, like what? So it's like, or why is cost of living all of a sudden up? And it gets really, it's tough. Like all of a sudden you notice your grocery bill, and being somebody in fitness, how much like meat and like protein and like
expensive
chicken, eggs, beef, like that we're eating. It's pretty wild right now, like grocery bills and stuff. So it's tough out there, but it's still so important to invest in yourself.
Definitely.
So it's like, I hope we can get through this hard time. And yeah, I just feel like, because it is tough. People start making all this progress. Like, they'll hire someone like you, a coach, and like they start feeling good. And then they got to make those tough decisions.
Well, and it's interesting because you can see it as a loop, right? Like you can see if somebody has to cut something completely out. You saw it during COVID. You can see it like even post-COVID. Some people might argue that we're not completely post-COVID, but whatever. You can see it then, you can see it now. Where when people don't have access to the gym, when people like their physical health, when they're not making their physical health a priority, or when they are doing other things, like, because we talked about eating disorders. Well, eating disorders also fall on the other side of the ledger too, where people overeat or they comfort eat.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
And so if
Big
somebody
time.
gets in a loop with that, where say that they've hired a coach like me or somebody else, and they're starting to make progress, they're eating better, they're feeling better, and then they have to start to cut that stuff out. Mentally, they start to go down. Then they start to comfort eat, which then puts them in a loop. Say that
it's
they
a drug
drink.
In a way too. It can be
Say
like
that
a
they
drug,
drink.
yeah.
Drinking is a depressant. Like alcohol is a depressant, and so then it's like they drink to feel better, but then in the morning they don't feel better, and you start to see it as a loop. So for me, again, like I say, it's my passion profession. I don't ever want to see somebody hurting like that, and if there's something that I can do to help prevent that to a certain degree, because I have to make a paycheck too. But I definitely will do it. So like I said, with my clients, it's trying to come up with solutions where if you are financially at a point right now where you're having to make decisions, I completely understand. I want you to be open with me about it. Be open with me about it, so hopefully we can find some solutions for you that even though they might not be perfect. Because I know you'd love to come in 4 days a week and meet with me once a week, but let's space it out, or let's,
it is
come
weird.
up with a plan for you.
It's weird how like poverty can send people into those kind of loops.
Yeah.
So like it is weird. Like if everybody could just make a little more money, we would be a healthier society. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to make that happen or whatever, but it is weird. Like you said, you start. You take away a little bit, and then they can't train with you. Now you'll turn back to the alcohol or the food or the. It's weird how like poverty almost sends you to more of the addiction stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see like, oh, I can see how people end up homeless.
Well, and like, even with the types of food too, if you think about it, if you walk into a grocery store and you think about, a single mom or dad or whatever, or anybody, a family that is using EBT, food benefits, right? They have a certain amount of food benefit assistance. And you go in there and you look at the price of chicken and eggs, and then you look at all the processed stuff.
So you look at Hot Pockets and frozen pizzas,
exactly.
And you can get 10 for 10.
What are they going to buy?
Now I got 10 nights of pizza, which is a whole meal for my family, for $10.
Right.
Versus I can't even get a bag of chicken for that.
And that is, and there's two sides to the coin there. You have to look at it too, in that they're going to be practical in that they want to be able to get the most food for their family.
Right.
But then at the same time, from a health perspective, that might not be the best food.
Oh, definitely not.
Which, all of this is so interconnected.
It's weird in our country, the correlation between poverty and obesity, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, there was a time where, like, people with a lot of money were like being overweight was like a sign of having money.
Right, yeah.
And now it's like being fit is like a sign of having money, kind of. It's weird. But you're right, it is like, there's not a lot of healthy options for I mean, you can do it.
You can do it. So
don't be discouraged, because it can be done.
No, it can be done. It can be done. I'm just saying.
There's a lot of cool videos, even like bodybuilding on a budget, where they'll kind of help, and you can find some. It's tough though. You can see why people.
It's also about being aware too. So some of it too is educational. It's an educational component.
Right.
To and it's not saying that if you are on EBT or using state assistance or something like that, you aren't, or that that you have to choose the Hot Pockets and all that kind of stuff. Like Hot Pockets is going to get pissed at us.
Yeah, we're definitely not getting the Hot Pockets.
We're not going to be sponsored by Hot
sponsorship
Pockets.
now. That's all right.
Yeah. But there is an educational component to it that like you can eat healthy.
Yeah.
And you can eat healthier, and it's not saying all processed food is bad. Like
No.
there's certain things that
It can
you
be
can,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's certain things that you can do, and I think it's just, trying to, they've got that added level of difficulty, so you have to have the person. And plus, if you think about like all the different things that people in poverty are facing, the stress, the sheer stress that they are facing, to try and then tell them that their lives are going to be exponentially better if they start eating better, and to have
They're
the
going to be
time
like,
to
I don't
actually
give a
talk to
shit.
you. Yeah.
My life is shit. I just want some Hot Pockets.
There's
Leave
some
me alone.
barriers there. There's some barriers, but it's not impossible.
They're like,
It's
I want
really
cigarettes and Hot
impossible.
Pockets. Leave me alone. You don't understand. It's like, I kind of get it, but you can be healthy at any level, I think. And you're right. You will feel better. And that might set you on a path to like making your life better too.
Right.
So I would
Definitely.
say never give up. Like it can always be done. So.
I'm a big proponent of that. I mean, you have to have awareness. You have to have a bit of that kind of like drive and determination. You have to be a fighter to a certain extent.
Yep.
But yeah.
I'm a big proponent of change and that you can make your life better at any level. It's a lot of it's mindset, and not to say that, I don't want to blame people, for like being at the level they're at, because it sucks, but I feel like you can do it,
Well, there's another thing too, like speaking of mindset, like I've seen it myself even in my own family. Like, it's interesting because you wonder sometimes how two people can come out of the same family and have such different mindsets on things. But
very much.
You can have a victim's mindset.
Yeah. Or
you can have a fighter's mindset.
Yeah, I'm not big on the victim one.
Exactly. And
it'll get you.
It's interesting to me because I'm like I said, I never sit there and say my life is perfect. It's far from perfect. It really is. But each morning I have a ritual a morning routine where I start my day out with gratitude. Like I do my cardio. It gets my blood, moving, that sort of stuff. I come back. I have meal one. I sit down. I do my devotional, and I do my grateful journal.
Yeah.
And my grateful journal is where it's right off the bat. I write 5 things right off the top of my head that I'm grateful for that morning. And it's crazy what it's done for me, because some mornings it's funny. Some mornings I am just grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for sweat, and I'm grateful for an apple.
Yeah.
And then other mornings I'm a little more, profound with it. Like I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for my daughter. I'm grateful for my clients, like that sort of stuff. But it's just even just the discipline of right off the bat, first thing in the morning, listing out 5 things that you're grateful for. It breaks that cycle of like, oh my gosh, it's so early. I don't want to have to get up and do cardio.
That's so important.
Or, oh my gosh, like today is a really long day. I've got clients from 5 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. I'm going to be exhausted. Like it takes you out of that negativity and it puts you into a much more positive mindset. Now your situation hasn't changed.
Right, but
your difficulties haven't changed.
Sometimes I'll do that where it's like, just think how lucky we are to get this life that we even have. Like, yeah, like I'd say when I'm performing at my absolute best is the times when I'm like really grateful and happy. Like when you start letting that victim mentality in, it just starts sucking all your energy. And it puts you in I don't know, just not a good spot to make things happen.
It allows for you to make excuses too. It really does, because
it takes your power away, really.
Exactly. You can always look at somebody else and you can be like, oh, well, it must be easier for them to do that because of this.
Probably not, though.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Like if I've had some people say to me, because I'm a personal trainer now,
nice.
And because I'm a personal trainer now and I do nutritional consulting now, that it's easy for me to get my cardio in and to lift and to eat the way that I do because that's my job. And it's like, well, no, actually,
it's harder.
Not. I have to get up some mornings at 2:30 in the morning to get my cardio in because I've got clients.
Yeah.
I can't run on a treadmill when I'm supposed to be training a client or doing
It's definitely harder because you have clients. They don't understand that.
Yeah, fitting my lift in between clients when I'm exhausted from being on my feet all day.
Yep.
Like, that's not complaining. I'm not complaining.
No, but I totally understand what you're saying, because like, so if I'm working at the bar and I have no clients, because now I do have some clients, I have all the time in the morning to do my own lifting, focus on myself, get all that in, meal prep, then I go to the bar and I work at night. days when I have clients, it's like, you're right, it just takes more chunks out of your day. So it's like, when do you find that time for your own lift and your own stuff? Yeah.
Well, and it's like, it's the grass is greener mentality.
Yeah.
Like there were parts of my life, there were definitely parts of my life where I had that, I had that mentality where it's like, they have more money, or they came from, with lobbying, it's all about who you know. And I didn't come from an affluent family.
Oh, like, I wish I had those connections.
Yeah, I didn't come from an affluent family.
Yeah.
My family's not rich. They're not well known. Like, all that kind of stuff. Like, I came from blue collar workers and teachers. And
that's crazy.
So it's like, there was a point in my life where I definitely was, the grass is greener. Like,
that's unique in itself, that you came from blue collar into that political lifestyle.
Yeah.
I do think there is something with that kind of like blue collar growing up that way. I feel like we do a little bit of that too much, and it's kind of part of our culture as blue collar, like kind of hating on rich people and stuff.
Yes, I would agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always like, oh, fucking assholes, rich people.
Yeah,
and
when they're not all like that.
Right, no, not at all. And some people work really hard to get where they are.
Some people worked super hard to get where they're at.
And you don't realize it till you start working. You're like, oh, like, wait a minute.
The other thing too is some people are super, super rich, have all the money in the world, but they're miserable.
That is true.
I made so much more money when I was lobbying than I do now, but I was miserable. I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always working. My stress was through the roof. I wasn't able to see my kid. Like,
so I always think that, like, I always think people are crazy that say, like,
there's trade-offs.
Money doesn't buy happiness, but there definitely is, like, it doesn't. I think if you're already kind of happy and you're like somebody, like you said, these people that are dealing with super financial issues, of course money would help make them happy, because it would free all this stress and like, where is this money going to come from? But I think there is a level, and especially if you're born rich, like, I don't think it's going to make you happy, because it's like, that's all you've ever known.
Right. Perspective.
I actually feel like if you're born really poor and you get rich, you're going to like appreciate it way, way more. You know what I'm saying?
From earning it.
Well, yeah, because like, you had to work your ass off to get it. So it's like, you work yourself up and you like buy a Bugatti or something, or you buy some expensive car that you've never thought you'd ever get. Like, you're probably going to appreciate it a little more. Yeah. Like, because it's like...
Or you realize you don't want that. That's actually something...
Or it's just a car, yeah.
That's actually something that's really interesting that... So, speaking of when I was going through, like, the parts during COVID, where it was like, do I continue on this path, or do I just go back to what I was doing? And I had what I called right sizing, right? Yep. So, what would it take? What income would it take for me to... at least just break even to continue the lifestyle that I want to have? Mm-hmm. And that's when I, at one point I had a 3-story home that was on the top of a hill in the Olympia area, and all these things where it was like, okay, that didn't matter to me. And actually that was more of a burden, because I'm a single mom now and I can't keep up that house. Like, at one point, way back when, we ended up hiring a gardener, and it's like, I don't want to spend my money on a gardener. Like,
like, why do I need all this?
I don't need this stuff. And I've realized now, like, even when I was doing kind of like, I do a lot of goal setting and stuff like that for stuff even beyond bodybuilding, but bodybuilding is always included in it. Mm-hmm. But when I was doing my goal setting for 2023, part of it is, what do I want my life to look like? And it isn't a big home. Yeah. It isn't a super fancy car. Yeah. It isn't like, I have a tiny apartment, and I don't want to live in my tiny apartment for forever. I would love to own a home again at some point when I can afford it, but I don't want a large home. Yeah. Like, I want a smaller home. Like, my life, the life that I want is not necessarily one that should require a ton of money.
It almost becomes a burden sometimes. Yeah. Because you have to keep up with it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. It is time to take a short break for our sponsors. The Nicky Free Podcast is now brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. So join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. So it is 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code NickyFit at manscaped.com. So the thing about it is like when you're, you're trying to shave your balls, you got like a date or something, you don't know where things are going to go, but you don't want to be like showing up all messy down there. You want to show up all clean. You want to be looking good down there. You know what I'm saying? So like we've all done that. You get a shaver out, you go to shave yourself, and what happens every time? You cut your balls, man. And it's no good when you cut your balls. You start bleeding all over your ball sack. You got blood going everywhere. You get it cleaned up. You go on the date. And, like, obviously, you're a high-performance male. So, like, things are going good for you in the date. Stuff starts going well. And next thing you know, like, one thing leads to another. But then the thing is you whip it out. And, like, there's a big thing. Like, your balls are all cut up. And it's, like, all sore down there. And it's, like, such a turnoff, So it's, like, you don't want that to happen to you, like you don't want a big open wound on your ball sack when you're out on a date. Like that's just no way to be. So check out the Performance Package 4.0 has arrived and it is a game changer. So inside this package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is right here. And look at these things, man. Manscaped's products are so aesthetically pleasing looking, like the design on it. It looks like something that Batman would use. It's like so sleek. It's all black. It's just like aesthetically pleasing to look at. They've done such a good job. So this is the Lawnmower 4.0. The other thing that comes in the performance package is the Weed Whacker, nose hair and ear trimmer, because it's like, I see this all the time. You're talking to somebody and it's like they take care of themselves. They eat healthy. They work out. They're trying to look good and everything. But then it's like you look at their nose and it's a bunch of nose hair sticking out. Bro, take care of that. Like, why do you want to do that? Use the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer because, like, clean that shit up, dude. Nobody wants to see that, man. Inside the package, you're also going to find the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant because you want your balls to smell good, the Crop Reviver Toner, and then also the Boxer Briefs that come with. And I'm probably going to take some scantily clad photos in these because, if you've seen my Instagram, the leaner I get, the more like scantily clad photos and videos I take. So I'm going to be rocking these Manscaped things, showing off the abs, trying to look sexy online. I'll be taking some videos in these. It also comes with the travel bag so you can carry it all with you so that when you're on the go, you got to be looking good when you're on the go. So let's talk a little bit about the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is the future of grooming and, dare I say, the greatest ball hair trimmer ever. It's a 4th generation trimmer. It features cutting edge ceramic blades to reduce grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof. It also has an LED spotlight. So when you're down there doing it, man, like you can see all the nooks and crannies. It got the spotlight on it so you're not missing any spots or anything. Because it's waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess on the bathroom floor. You can do it in the shower. You can, So guys, it's time to take care of yourself. All right, look at this. Look at this product. It's awesome. Thank you, Manscaped. This stuff is so great. They also threw in this beard hedger, which is just a great beard trimmer. We'll talk about that another time. But this is the performance package. So yeah, guys, go online, go to manscaped.com. If you want 20% off, use code NickyFit. You will get 20% off and free shipping worldwide. So check out the performance package. It's awesome. And thank you guys so much. Use code NickyFit. Save 20%. You're really helping out the podcast. And I want to say that I was already using Manscaped before they started sponsoring the podcast. I think they're a great product. So thank you guys for picking this stuff up. Use code NickyFit. Save 20% and free shipping. You're really helping me out. You're helping out the podcast. And thank you to Manscaped. And thank you guys. Go out there. Let's get cleaned up. Let's not go out there all messy and stuff. We got to look good. All right, guys. Thank you. Well, they also call it like the hedonic treadmill, So it's like you get to a level and then you have to maintain it and then you want more and you're always chasing the next thing and the next thing. And it's like you don't really need it to be happy. Like I think there's a level of income where like if everybody could get to a certain level where they're comfortable, that is going to make them happier. But like to go above that, it's probably not necessary.
Well, and I found that even in my life, like when I started in politics, I started as an intern.
Yeah.
And then slowly kind of worked my way up from there. Interns don't make much money at all.
Right.
But what I found is that every time I made more money, it was as if
More money, more problems.
Well, it was as, and here's another thing with me too. I've had to restructure the way that I think about money because having come from a family where, like I said, we didn't have a lot of money at all. And it was a very fearful mindset around money.
Same. I get that.
And so it was, I would get anxiety still to this day. I get anxiety. I'm getting better about it. But what I ended up doing is I didn't want to have to deal with budgeting. I didn't want to have to deal with any of that kind of stuff. I would make the money. Somebody, like you allocate it, my partner at the time, you allocate it, you spend it,
because you didn't, it was too stressful.
Because it was too stressful. But what I found is every next level, like every time I got a new job, every time I got a new raise, every time I got something else, inevitably we would always get to a part where we'd have the conversation where it's like, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute,
that's what happened.
I just made 20,000 more this year. Like, why is that not enough? Like,
it's because your lifestyle keeps growing.
It kept increasing. It kept increasing, and it kept increasing. And I, in my own, because again, I've got to take accountability on myself. I had given those reins over.
Yeah.
And so now, like, taking accountability for myself, I'm working on that part of it. Money still stresses me out, and it still freaks me out. But it's again, like I said, like looking through the right sizing. Like, what is it do I need to get to? And it's actually not as much as I would assume.
More about, like you said, what actually makes you happy in life. Like the things that I always think, like, what money is great because it like gives you freedom. It gives you like takes care of stress. Like you don't have to worry about medical or whatever, but the real things that matter usually aren't money. I mean, it's not about money. Like, what matters the most to you, probably, like, your family.
Yeah.
Your...
That's a big thing that's been, so for me with my daughter.
Yeah.
She's in 5th grade. This is her last year of elementary school. She's going into 6th grade next year. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I want to be able to be there for her on the days that I have her, because I split custody 50-50. I drop her off at school. I pick her up at school. I want her to be able to talk to me, to know me. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because now when her and I have those conversations, she doesn't really remember me as a lobbyist.
She doesn't remember California mom.
She doesn't, she doesn't.
And that's kind of what
that's a good thing. Like, the other day, her and I've got a trunk that's in my living room that has a bunch of, like, photo albums and stuff like that in it. And it has a bunch of my old bill signing photos. So whenever a piece of legislation is enacted, they have a bill signing. Mm-hmm. And it's a ceremonial thing, really. And it's where the governor signs the piece of legislation into law. And oftentimes there's a ceremony where if you were involved with getting that bill passed or piece of legislation passed, you can go and get your photo taken while the governor's signing it.
Okay.
You get the bill signing pin, all that kind of stuff. Well, there was one particular piece of legislation where I personally worked with the governor and the attorney general to get this bill passed. Mm-hmm. And when it had to do with patent trolls.
Yeah.
And so in patent trolls, I won't even go into the policy on that.
I don't even know what that is.
It's okay. I won't even go into the policy on that. But as a cute little thing that we wanted to do, so the attorney general, of course, has children. So we brought little troll dolls and stuff, and we invited our kids to come.
Oh, like the trolls with the hair and shit?
With the hair, yeah. For them to come to the bill signing ceremony. And so when my daughter and I were looking through these photos, this was just the other day. I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago, or not 2 weeks ago, like 2 days ago. It was this week. Uh-huh. We were looking through the photos and stuff. There's a picture of her, and it was with Governor Inslee and Bob Ferguson, Attorney General Bob Ferguson. And she's real little, and she's just like, when she saw the picture, she doesn't remember that day.
That's crazy.
She was like, you know those people, Mom? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I did.
And you met them.
I did. Yeah, I did. I knew those people.
Does that feel like a different lifetime
It
ago?
does. It does. It feels like a completely different lifetime.
Do you feel like it's almost like sometimes
I still have connected. I'm still in contact with some people from politics. Not everybody. Yeah. Not everybody, but still some people. And I will say, like, so this year for Washington State, it was the first year. So in 2019, they had an in-person legislative session. In 2020, it got shut down. Not shut down where it was virtual, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first year that they've been back with everybody on campus for legislative session.
Mm.
And when that started, there was like a lot of excitement. And it's funny because some of my clients are actual former colleagues. Some people that come to me for training in nutrition are lobbyists.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And it's interesting because when legislative session started up this year, a part of me was like, I missed it. But then I realized when I thought about it and I took a step back and I prayed about it, I didn't miss what I was doing.
Yeah.
I missed those people.
The people.
I missed those people. And so I still do keep in contact with some of them. I consider them friends. They are good people. Like, there are good people in politics. There really are.
I'll take your word for it.
There really are.
I'm sure there actually are.
Yeah.
It's just a hard...
But it does seem like
people
a
get so
lifetime
jaded,
ago.
but you know, there are people that, like, thank God we do have people that care and that are working in politics. Like,
you need that.
I think it was one time I was listening to like Bill Maher or something, and he was talking to somebody, you know, and they were arguing a little bit about politics, but he made a really good point. Like, he was like, you know, thank God there are those people though that are like staying up till 3 a.m, working on this thing, doing this thing to get this thing. Like, yes, it's so corrupt, it's so this, it's so that, but like without those people doing that, we wouldn't even make the little incremental good things when they do happen.
Right.
So he's like, thank God for those people. So it's like we're so jaded about it, but like we still live in the best country there is to live in, and thank God we have the system in place that we do. You know, if we want to go out and protest right now, we can. If we want to say like, I don't like our president, or I don't like the last president, or, you know, we can say that and we're not going to get in trouble. We're not going to, you know, we have rights. Like, I don't know. I think like, yeah, as messed up as it is, like, I'm still really happy that we live in the U.S., you know? So,
Definitely. And it's one of those things, like you were saying about sometimes when we have a certain mindset around something, like about like money, like the fear mindset about money. When we have a certain mindset around politics, we get jaded. And
very
we get
much.
jaded
It's
about,
easy.
like, they're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. Well, if they're all corrupt, then how come we get anything good passed or stopped? Like, this is a whole other thing.
Yeah, there are good things that do happen.
Like, a lot of stuff that people don't realize is, like, the legislative process is set up to kill legislation. It's not set up to pass it. It's actually very difficult to get bills
So when we pass something good, it's, like, amazing, huh?
Well, a lot of the work is actually stopping stupid stuff.
Stopping bad stuff.
Yeah, it's stopping stupid stuff. So the majority of, like, my bill signing photos and the actual, like, pins that I would get is very small in comparison to the number of pieces of legislation that I was able to get stopped.
Right.
And not necessarily is stopping legislation a bad thing. Sometimes it's a really good thing. But you don't hear about that. Like, as just a general, like, average person, you don't hear about that. That's the stuff that's the behind the scenes. And so when we're really jaded about politics and we're like, oh, everybody in there is corrupt, it's like, you don't realize the people that are working tirelessly. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That was a good point by Bill Maher. It was like,
it is exhausting.
Yeah, we don't think about that.
And yeah, it's just, you know, again, it's...
The system's fucked up, but there are good people trying to work it.
Well, and
make good...
perfect. Nothing's perfect.
Well, I just heard this thing, like, in, like, Uganda, it's, like, death penalty for LGBTQ.
Yeah, there's ways.
And it's, like, imagine shit like that. So, like, think about, we are doing better than, you know what I mean? Like, we have a better system in place, like... you hear all these crazy things in other countries, and you're like, well, see, then... Like, you can't be too jaded.
Right.
Because, like, there's still obviously certain things getting done. Like, when we really, really want something, it seems like, you know, they will listen.
Or if you're passionate about something, or there's something that means something to you. One of the things when I was a lobbyist, like, legislators are more likely to listen to their constituents. And you have to have a compelling story. When you're lobbying, you have to have a compelling story. Yeah. So here's one thing. Like, for example, they would see me on a daily basis. Legislators and policymakers would see me, my face, my mug, in front of them on a daily basis. They knew who I was. They knew who I represented. they didn't see, like, if it was a piece of legislation that impacted a certain community of people, they didn't see those people.
Right.
So when it came time for, coming up to a hearing or coming up to a major cutoff or something like that, as a lobbyist, if you're a good one and you've got something, you want to get those people in there. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard because, especially, like, I think about me now being a personal trainer and nutritional consultant and stuff like that. And it's like, how would I have time to go to Olympia to do X, Y, or Z, right? That's taking away from my life and my job and all that kind of stuff.
But if it means a lot.
Exactly. Like, if you can, and if it means something to you, even if it's emailing, even if it's calling, even if it's writing a letter, like, people think that stuff doesn't make a difference.
So it's not for nothing.
It's not gonna. Here's one thing that during, like, for example, like when the gyms were shut down, there was, I was working at Whetstone Fitness at the time when the gyms got shut down. And there was a certain woman who was also a lobbyist, and she knew that I knew certain people.
Yeah.
And she was like, Joanie, you can make a difference. Call so-and-so. And I'm like, I don't want to. I'm out of politics now. And she kept at me for weeks. Joanie, call so-and-so.
Okay.
Call that person. Call that person. And then I finally called that person. And then I got in touch. That person put me in touch with the person that the governor's office had hired to create the policies for the reopenings, which then, yes, I didn't get paid for work that if I was lobbying, I would have gotten paid thousands of dollars for a retainer for the work that I did. And I didn't get paid at all for the work that I did. But it was that I was passionate about it. I put in the time and I had the connections. Now, when it comes down to, like, an average person, making phone calls or whatever, like, so speaking of COVID, when the gyms were shut down, there was one time where a bunch of people came and started rallying on the Capitol steps and stuff like that. And you have your right to protest and everything.
Right.
Is your protesting really going to make a difference? Sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? And what I found during that time, what was making the most movement was to behind the scenes make these, have these conversations, do these negotiations, and slowly get movement rather than saying, hey, everybody come to the Capitol and say, screw the governor, and we're going to open up the gyms anyway, and we're anarchy, and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That would have backfired.
Right.
Right? So even though I might have felt that way, it would have backfired. So it's thinking about it, like, again, it's thinking about, like, if you're passionate about something and you have the time, or you make the time, what is going to be the best use of your time?
Yes. Yeah.
When you're getting involved in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like, there is certain channels you have to go through to, like, make it, like, we always want to do the protest thing, but you're right, I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes that gets really destructive and, like,
and the mob mentality happens sometimes, but then sometimes it's misdirected.
Imagine being one of those January 6 people that just got caught up in the fucking, how mob mentality works. Like, half the people don't even actually believe it. They're just, like, caught up in the, and the next thing you know, you're going to jail. It's like, what were you thinking? Like,
well, and then sometimes too, like, I saw this when I was lobbying at state capitals and throughout that region that I was explaining earlier. It wasn't just Washington State, but you would get massive rallies at state at state capitals over something that the state government had zero control over. It was federal.
Yeah.
And so, if anything, you're impacting the people at the state level that can't do anything to change it.
Yeah, or holding up traffic.
Yeah, and it's like, do their voices feel heard? That's definitely why they have the ability to do that if they want to. If they want to do that.
Yeah, I'm pro the ability.
But it's like, was that really worth your time? That whole day of you protesting at a state capitol over something that was a federal issue, was that really worth your time?
Some people just don't have anything better to do. Yeah, no, I don't know. It's like,
or some people just don't know,
or they just feel that passionate about it. I'm not going to knock them for it. But yeah, that is interesting because I don't think a lot of us. I think that's pretty cool what you said about politics because I think that we do get really jaded about it. So it's good to hear that there are people like yourself that were in there.
I'm not there anymore.
Well, that was in there trying to make positive changes and actually. like you said, there's people that are putting in effort and time to try to make things happen. So
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't quite give up on the whole system and tear it all down.
I agree.
Yeah, we should.
I agree.
Right. So, but anyways, so it's almost seems as if like the universe kind of like, maybe you were supposed to do that at the time because it was what you were meant to do. It was an experience, but like sometimes I feel that life kind of has a plan for you that it's gonna put you on whether you want it or not.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like you can even try to run from it sometimes, and life's just gonna be like, nah, this is what I'm making you do this shit. Like
Boop,
you're not getting out of this. You're not giving up on it. I'm sorry, but this is the plan I got for you. And it's almost like it just knows. It's like it puts this thing in your head, like you know that you have this potential, and there's something. It's like an itch you can't stop until you make it happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the universe, and I feel like you can run from your destiny. You can try to get away from it, try to change it, but sometimes it's just that's it.
I think the biggest thing for me too, the biggest paradigm shift for me is I used to be so future focused.
Yeah.
I wasn't really focused on my past because I think my personality, I'm more of a fighter. So,
yeah.
And I feel like I always have been. So it was like if bad things happened, yeah, they happened, but I wasn't going to stay there.
Right.
And so it was always kind of focused on future. And I think my biggest paradigm shift has been to focus more on the present.
Yeah, it's happier when you try to, yeah.
Yeah, you can get massive amounts of anxiety over the future and not know how you're going to get somewhere. And then you've spent days ruined worrying about something where oftentimes if you release it and just think about getting through the next 24 hours.
Right.
And that's what I've done with my life, especially these past 3 years actually, is really try and shift it to
when you do the work in the present,
day.
Right? Like,
yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like you can't really, like, so if you're worrying about the future, like, you're not even doing the work that's going to make the future good.
Right.
Like, you can think about the future and be like, okay, I understand what steps I need to take to make the future I want. But then if you're not going to, like, focus on the now, you're not going to do the steps that are needed.
Yeah.
Like, that is interesting. I feel like, when you slow down, like, because I do that, like, right now, like, we're worrying about this show and stuff,
right.
Like, just starting to get to the point where, like, I feel like the next few weeks are where I'm going to have to get really used to feeling starving, and I got to get used to it. I can't freak out. I can't overeat because it's going to throw everything off,
right.
So I have to get that idea in my head, but then it's like, so you're worrying about this future time, but instead if you just focus on the day.
Exactly.
And that's what I've always been doing is like, oh, I love lifting. So it's like, why am I focusing on, like, today's leg day? So just focus on, like, you ate the correct foods. You didn't eat anything off your plan. You went to the gym. You did your leg day. And you had a great leg day.
Yeah.
You get home. You eat what you're supposed to eat. And I feel like the more you, like, do what you're supposed to do, it puts you on this path. And you, like, you know what I mean? It's like...
exactly. So you don't have to. So that's actually a perfect example in a way. Because if you think about it, when you can set a certain goal, like you can set that you're going to do Emerald Cup, right?
Yeah.
And you know that looking back on, so I'm going to do Emerald Cup. Emerald Cup is this day.
Yep.
So I've got to count backwards from that, from when I'm going to start my prep or how I want to start my prep. Do I want it to be in a really super aggressive 8-week prep? Do I want it to be 12? Am I looking more at 10 or 16?
Right.
Figure out what your time frame is to start coming down on a prep. And then it's each day, taking it each day. But then it's also not only taking it each day and taking each day as it comes and doing the best that you possibly can each day. But I feel like it's a good scenario too, because it's also, the stage is always going to be there. Yeah. So if you do everything you are supposed to do and you get down to it and you are 4 weeks out from Emerald Cup or 2 weeks out from Emerald Cup and you know that your physique is just not there or mentally you're just not there, there's always going to be another stage.
That's true. Yeah.
You might not step on the Emerald Cup stage, like not talking about you
personally,
but
then
you're
totally
right,
you're right.
Stage. But as a competitor, you might not get on that stage that year. That's not saying you won't ever get on it.
Yeah.
And that's not saying
so it's like never give up either.
And that's also like with Emerald Cup, like again, using that for example, like I just on my Instagram, a couple weeks ago, and I saved it under my highlights for NPC resources. I listed out all the local shows in the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
The days, the time, or the days that where they're at, what city, what state, what promoter, all that kind of stuff. I have that listed on my Instagram, and it's all like, again, so say you're in prep for Emerald Cup and that's what you want to do, and then again, like you're like 4 weeks out or 2 weeks out, and it's like, it's not in the cards. What about the Pacific Coast Championships? That's in Lincoln City, Oregon.
So you can think like you can think of another time.
You
There's
still
always
would
some
be
other
on prep
option
for that. You still would have to be on prep for that.
Yeah.
Give yourself maybe a couple more weeks and then head down to Lincoln City.
Well, and the cool thing is then you're still
options.
learning, right?
Yeah.
You're still learning that whole time.
And you're learning what you can implement in your next prep.
Yeah. And I feel like you're learning your body all the time too, like cuz you start, because I did a mock prep, and I think you learn stuff when you get down to like those super low calories, like, and you learn like kind of what you said, like with what triggers you have, like especially you beating your eating disorder and stuff, like how to like why am I doing this? Why is my mind going here? You can fight those kind of like those triggers or whatever. So you learn how to like deal with like the mental part. And keep yourself on the right path. Now, that's the other thing I was going to ask you about with recovering from an eating disorder. Does getting closer to like a prep when you get really lean, does that trigger any of that stuff again? Or are you
thrive on it?
But because you're so focused at that time, so you're still like probably very much on the meal plan.
Yeah.
So the meal plan kind of saves you from like just eating a Kind bar and a fucking coffee or whatever. Yeah,
the hardest part, like I said, the hardest part for me is my building phases.
So it's actually the eating more part.
When I get on a cut for a show, that's my I hate to say it because a lot of people complain about cuts for shows, but that's a whole other thing. Like, this is a sport you choose to do. This is something that you want to do. So people that complain, it's like, okay, like some days I catch myself complaining, but I try and stop. Because this is a luxury sport, like, to be honest. It's a luxury sport.
Honestly, the cut is like the funnest part sometimes.
It's sometimes seeing those
you start
shreds
feeling
come
so
in
good
and stuff like that too. Yeah.
I start posting like stuff I shouldn't on Instagram because it's like
Look at
you start
this.
looking good, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like,
No, the prep's my bread and butter. I do very well in preps. Like, not to say that I'm that I don't have difficulties during prep.
Right.
My coach probably, if she's watching,
I actually kind of love prep.
If she's watching it later, she might like roll her eyes.
Yeah.
Because I am one of my past coaches. She used to call me Excel spreadsheet because I'm very type A. I'm like super dialed in.
Well, that's probably what helped you with the politics and being an overachiever.
Super dialed in. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say the only thing tough about this prep right now has been, like you said, the financial issues that we're all going through because of the economy. Because, like, every other time I've done anything in bodybuilding, I've been, like, pretty flush, So I'm, like, I have all the money for coaching. It's, like, lately it's been hard, like, staying on track with everything. And that's just because I need to make more money,
Well,
it's like...
That's another thing, though, too. Actually, I'd love to talk about this a little bit because it's kind of both spaces.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding and social media.
Yeah.
And what's interesting
anything you want to talk about that, that's interesting.
So what's interesting to me about that is that I feel like a lot more lifestyle people follow bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And not understand not only the financial impacts, but also the time and commitment it takes.
Oh, they have no clue.
And that has been one thing for myself in this career that I've actually, like, I've started more so lately, like a lot more so lately. I've had to start very much separating the two. Yeah. Because my Instagram used to be, and it still kind of is, like, I haven't changed anything or taken anything down or anything like that, but
fitness oriented.
It used to be a lot about my story in bodybuilding. And I would document all my preps. I would document, like, all that kind of stuff for people. And now more so because I've had clients come in and they don't have the perspective. Yeah. And so they will see, and oftentimes too, just like you said, when you're getting shredded, you're more likely to post pictures on social media, right? Pictures and videos because you look amazing, right?
Yeah, you're feeling good about yourself.
And your stage shots and all that kind of stuff. And so to the average person, the average lifestyle person, they think that you walk around like that all year long. Right. They don't see the difference, and they don't know the difference, and they also don't understand the importance of the difference of having the building phases and things like that.
I think it's healthy when people post the building phases.
I do too.
And they don't feel good about how they look.
I do too. Yeah. But it's like, it's really interesting to me how it's, like I said, with me, I've had to separate the two a bit more so.
Right.
Because when I'm dealing, like the majority of my clients are lifestyle clients.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize, like, you're right, the amount of money that we spend on our bodies, like at a certain, when you're at a certain level, and I'm not even at that level yet, but like I'm like, you know, if I added up how much I spend on supplements and everything, it's
coaching, like, supplements, food, it's your gym membership, it's your workout clothes, because if you're doing a lot of cardio, you're going through a lot of cardio shoes too and stuff like that. It's your NPC card. It's
people
your
like, you do laundry every day. I'm like, well, yeah, I go to work, I go to the gym, I go. Like, what am I going to do? Just not wash the clothes that I wore at the gym and work? Like, you know.
Yeah, and for women, men, it's tanning too. But for women, it's tanning, hair, and makeup. It's the shoes. It's the suits. It's the, like, it adds up.
Right. It's all part of it.
It's an expensive sport.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do it, though. Do you have any kind of, like, favorite, like, do you have like a favorite like bikini company or anything that you like to like rock or?
So I love Angel Competition bikinis.
I've heard of them.
So I was just up at Mark's posing clinic on behalf of Angel. So I'm super excited that I'm an ambassador for Angel Competition bikinis.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
So the reason why I love them, though, I'll just do a quick plug for that. Because I've had different suits from different designers and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Angel Competition bikinis. So not only do I think a lot of women competitors will recognize them because they are like the suit designer to like Ashley Kaltwalter and Laura Lee and Janet and like the women
bigger
at the
names,
top of the sport. But it's a company that is a small female-owned business that's run by competitors. So they know what you're going through. They know what the judges are looking for with your suit. They'll talk you through suit design, suit color. But the other thing that I love about them too is they treat me, who I'm still an amateur NPC competitor that is working so hard. Soon to be pro, though. So hard to get that IFBB Pro card, and then would be more than honored to continue to compete in the IFBB. But they treat me the same that they treat Ashley, or they treat somebody else at the top of the sport. Like, it's a company that when I found Kara, who's the CEO, and Lexi is also another woman who is she's I think her title is junior suit designer.
Yeah,
they're incredible women. And so that's kind of
that's
I
cool,
fell in love
right?
with that company. That's why I am more than happy to represent them and to put my name with them, and I'm honored that they want their name with me. So so Angel Competition bikinis, and then Devotion Nutrition is another company that I do a lot of work with. They're a protein company, but they also have some wellness products and things like that. They're also Dana is the CEO of that. She's a former competitor, but she's also been in the fitness industry for a super long time. Small female-owned business out of Florida. And again, like when I'm connected with companies or brands, especially with the fitness industry and with myself, like my business now is my brand. Like me, I'm my own brand now. Yes. I'm not representing another elected official or company. When I put my name with a certain brand, like I want to make sure that
it means a lot.
Yeah.
You're not just going to do anything.
I'm not just going to hawk some company
so
that I haven't.
So you really believe in the brands that you're representing.
Right.
Yeah, because it's back to that ethics that you have.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's no way that you're not going to make IFBB Pro at some point.
I hope so.
Just with the it goes back to this just whatever that the thing that drove you in politics, or the thing, it's like it seems like you have like a drive and ambition you're probably going to
It's a
figure it out.
fire.
It's that fighter thing you're talking about. You're going to figure it out.
But you know what's interesting too, though, is it's also looking at other people. Like everybody has a story, and for some people, they were very blessed in that they were able, they're genetically blessed or whatever it is, and they're able to go in their first or second show and get their IFBB Pro card, right?
Right. It happens.
And then there's some of us where it takes us a bit longer. And one person that I feel like certain people are brought into your life for a reason, and one of them is Donnie Whetstone. And I worked for Donnie back, like I said, like right when I left lobbying and politics in 2019. And Donnie, gosh, I don't know how long he's been bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long, over 20 years, I want to say. Right. And he didn't get his IFBB Pro card, I think, until 2022.
Right.
And he is such an example to me, and always will be such an example to me of somebody who kept with it nonstop, just kept with it. Like, he was going to earn that pro card.
Yeah, I feel like
he did, and he's still competing too.
In a sense, I would say it's almost like you should be thankful that it's harder sometimes. Like, there's some people that are just, like you said, so genetically gifted or so talented in certain things that, like, it almost maybe things come easy to them. And that's not a knock on them. I know they still work super hard. But sometimes, like, the people that have to work really hard, extra hard to make it happen, there's almost something about, like, it's almost like you should be thankful for that in a sense. Because it's like you've had to, you get so much more out of it because you've had to, like, just work for it. Yeah. I always like that, like, even when, like, Conor McGregor will say that stuff, like, I'm not fucking talented, he's like I just work harder, like, or it's kind of like, The Rock, like you said, you were the hardest worker in the room, like, that's kind of his catchphrase, and that's what you said about politics too, like, there's something about that that's like, it's not talent, it's just working really hard. That's cool.
Well, and I get people, like, even back when I was in politics and I started bodybuilding, I had people in politics, and then I had people outside of politics, including my own family, that asked me, when are you going to stop this? Like, for bodybuilding, like, when are you going to be done?
Never.
And I've always said, and I still to this day stand by it, I want to do it until I'm physically no longer able to do it. Like, I want to be the one 80s plus master bikini chick that's up on stage. I want to keep doing it as long as I possibly can.
I totally feel that. It's like even like my family, I think they're like, when are you just gonna, like, get a normal job, stop trying to do, like, because I've done, like, pro wrestling, been in 3 bands, podcasting, now trying this bodybuilding thing, like, and it's like, I just don't have that in me to stop doing these things that I love. Like, I'd say one thing that's cool is, like, there will never be a time where I'm on my deathbed being like, what if I would have done this? Because I did it already.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't have that on me. There's certain, dude, there was this one person, I won't say who, but, like, he was, like, at work and just, like, saying, like, man, has my whole life just been a waste and all that? I'm like, that would be sad to me, like, to like, look back at your whole life, like, thinking it was a waste.
Or shoulda, coulda,
woulda. Well, because, so, like, yeah, I've done reckless things and I've done, like, risky things and things that didn't make sense for me financially. But because I did those things that way, I'll never have to be on my deathbed being like, man, I could have been a pro wrestler because I already did it.
Yeah.
It's like I already tried it. I already fucking went there. Like, so that's one thing I'm thankful for. And I don't know what that is. You must have it too.
Yeah.
It's like, when are you going to grow up and stop doing this bodybuilding? It's like, never.
What's interesting to me, though, like, so, for example, my parents and my family, like I said, they're blue collar, and, like, all the men in my family pretty much worked out at Hanford or worked as a subcontractor at Hanford.
Yeah.
And the most of the women in my family were either teachers or teachers' assistants.
Yeah.
My grandma was a lunch lady.
Right.
Like, that kind of
totally.
stuff. Yeah. And when I went into politics, they had no idea what the heck I was doing. They didn't.
There's no frame of reference.
No, and they didn't understand. And my grandpa used to joke with me, like, when I was the communications director for the Secretary of State's office, my office was literally sharing a wall with him, and I would go on trips with him, and, like, I still to this day consider him a friend, like, of mine. And I would come home, and my grandpa would be like, did you see the secretary today? Like, he thought it was like a joke. Like I really didn't see him. Like, they didn't have that frame of reference. And
well, they can't.
Over the course of time, though,
they got it.
They didn't get it, but over the course of time, they started to realize that's what Joanie does. That's what she does. And then when I made such a huge shift, I was getting divorced. I was changing careers.
Oh, God.
Like, my whole life went and changed.
Was your family just like, what is going on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, like...
You probably had to really believe in yourself at that time.
My parents, none of my family has been to any of my bodybuilding shows.
Ooh, that's
They
harsh.
don't recognize it. They won't. I remember one time when I was going to Masters Nationals in 2020, I did a photo shoot right beforehand, and I was very proud of the photos, and I sent them to my mom and my dad, and
you're not getting the response you want.
No,
it hurts, right?
Yeah, and I know that they worry about me, but just recently, so my mom and dad are getting older, and they don't have social media. They don't believe in social media. They never have, so that might actually be a good thing. I don't know. But I got in the mail last week a clipping from the Tri-City Herald, and it was an actual clipping, like a newspaper clipping. My mom and my dad clipped out an article from the Tri-City Herald and mailed it to me.
Yeah.
And it was about a personal trainer over in the Tri-Cities that had left what they were doing and started doing work with the elderly population and the impacts that trainer was having on the elderly population over there. Mm-hmm. And my mom put a handwritten note with that clipping that said, "When I saw this, thought of you and thought you might like to see what other professionals in your industry are doing." And sent it to me. So was
that like some kind of...
And when I got that, like, I teared up because it was like, they're recognizing.
So it was the first time they, like, it broke their bubble.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not bodybuilding. That's the personal
But it was like,
it's
like, so they understand a newspaper.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think that for them, that was like the first time that it was like them actually understanding maybe a piece of why I did such a huge shift with my life and why
they saw like a positive in it.
Yeah.
But that is really interesting what you said about like so like being super proud of something you've done, and then kind of like not getting the response or like the thing you're looking for, the thing you need from the loved ones that you have, but they don't even understand the world that you're in.
Yeah.
Like they're in such a different world that they can't even like comprehend your world, or like so then you're like you said, because I've had this with my family too, and it's like it's funny because like and I love my family. I have the greatest family.
Oh, of course, you still
same
love them,
you love them. Yeah, they're great. But it was like funny because it's like I've had this talk with my other friend who's like an artist and stuff, and like she has issues too, but it's like, because I remember one time Mark was on here and he's like, we're talking about the old pro wrestling days and some of the stuff I've done. And it's like, he's like, oh yeah, did your family? I'm like, they never went to one. Like they didn't understand it. They didn't get it. It's always just like that thing, like, oh, he's doing that thing he does. Like, I don't, like, it's like, there's just no, like,
right.
They just don't really understand anything outside of their like bubble. Like if it's not in the bubble of like, you go get a job at this factory, get married, move into a house a few doors down from them, go to the same restaurants your whole life, live in the same area.
And it's
they've never left the area. Mm-hmm. They've never had a frame of reference outside of it. And it's like, so, but you don't want to like knock them by like saying that, like, but it's true in a sense, like they're kind of stuck in this little bubble that they don't understand the greater world outside, and you've left.
Yeah.
You've went out into the world. So like there's that great thing. It's I think it's like the allegory of the cave. Have you ever heard that? It's like, who is it? Plato or one? It's called the allegory of the cave, and it's like, so there's like these people that are like stuck in a cave, and like they're chained up in a cave, and like they're watching like the shadows on the wall, and like that's what they consider the real world, because it's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
But then like one of them gets like undone and like goes outside of the cave and is like, there's a whole world out here. And like he like tries to go in and tell them like, hey, there's a whole world out here, and they're just like, no, that doesn't exist, because it's like to them it doesn't exist. They've never left the cave.
Well, and it was always it's interesting that you say that, because my family was very much like, in order to make a living, you go work for a company.
Yeah, you don't do things yourself.
Yeah,
you can't be an entrepreneur.
No.
You have to work for somebody else, but you know
go
what?
work for somebody else.
Working for somebody else doesn't give you what you need in life.
Right.
You know, like I'm not the like just imagine like working for a corporation where you have to do everything their way, and like I just could not do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because like the benefits are great, the pay's great, but if you actually look at the people's happiness level and what they're doing and their health and stuff, it's not great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's
well,
whatever life you want. I'm not gonna knock people in it, but
it's a trade off. Like I said before, like there's always a trade off.
And some people have to do it. They have a family and they just have to make those sacrifices and do it. And I'm never going to. Some guys have to go to a factory and work there for 40 years because they have a family to raise, and that's what they got to do.
Well, and some of the stuff too, like you said, I think in the beginning when we were chatting and you were talking about like the universe, like having a certain plan for you and you not being able to, you know, necessarily go different from it.
Yeah.
I think some of that too, like if I think about my own life and the stuff that I've been through, like, you know, even my marriage, like I wouldn't have my daughter right now if it wasn't for that. And then also with some of the stuff that I learned from politics and lobbying, you know, now
it's
I'm
still
able
super
to help.
Valuable.
Well, now I'm able to help implement that, like with some of the companies and brands that I talked about that I absolutely love. Like I can help them make connections in places that they didn't before, and I learned that skill through lobbying. And it's just like it's interesting how
I think the universe does that. Like you were never meant to be the person like your parents where you just never left. Like whatever, the universe had a different plan for you. So it's like, and then you have to, for me anyways, like I have to just be like, you know, if I get excited, like, hey, I have this bodybuilding show coming up, check this out, here's some posing, look at this. And I'll send that stuff too, and I'm not getting the kind of response I want either. Or I'm expecting some kind of support or love or like, wow, you work so hard. And it's like, they, like I said, they can't understand that world, so they don't even get it. They have no frame of reference. But I've realized like you can't like tell them that. You just have to let it go. Let it go. You know, because like it's still there. You know, the last thing you want to be is somebody like that's like, oh, please respect me and look at, you know, you don't want to be one of those people like begging for respect from people. If they're not getting it, they don't get it. You know, like, but yeah, I feel like there's certain people that are just not meant for that normal type of life. Like certain people are just meant to be like entrepreneurs.
I think so.
Yeah. They just have this thing in them. It's all they can do. And it's like I said, you can try to run from it or try to do other things and it's not going to work. Because the universe is going to be like, nope, I'm sorry, but this is what you're meant to do.
This is where you're going.
I know that you have this potential and I'm going to keep putting you on this path until you live up to this potential and you're not getting away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And that's probably what happens with you, you know? So it's like, it's super cool.
It's been a windy road for sure, but.
So what are your plans for the near future with shows coming up?
Yeah.
Obviously, trying to get that pro card. We'll talk about a little bit of that and we can wrap it up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So big things this year. Again, like I'm looking at a national show to be doing
sick.
One of the national shows to get my pro card, working with my coach on making the best decision for that. And then also, does that mean doing a local show beforehand to get some feedback on this build and what I've been doing and all that kind of stuff. So
if you do a local show, does that help getting like the feedback that helps you?
And stage time.
Okay, so more stage time practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to think about it too. One piece of advice I would give to newer competitors or those that are just now hitting the national stage or maybe are thinking about hitting the national level. When you hit the national level, you get a certain caliber of coaches that tend to be IFBB or only national level shows. Yeah. And so just using myself as an example, and then he's coming out here for Emerald Cup. So Tyler, he was at Universe and was one of the ones that I got feedback from. And so what would be a good strategy is, okay, well, he's coming to Emerald Cup. You know what I mean? So it's like, he'd be a good one to see, you know, like there would be an argument to be made there. Like if he saw me at Universe and then get his feedback again at Emerald Cup, see, you know, apples to apples sort of comparison there. So yeah.
So all that feedback helps.
All that feedback helps. Yeah. All that feedback helps. And then of course, like I said, getting the stage time and that sort of stuff. Cause you're always honing in on posing.
Nothing better than doing things to learn. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's that. That's the bodybuilding side of things. And then from a business perspective, I'm branching out beyond just personal training and nutrition, starting services like corporate wellness programs, things like that. I just did one at a company down in Tumwater.
That's awesome.
Where I'm teaching, where I go in and I do seminars basically about, whatever it is, it's custom to them, but it's on health and nutrition. And one I did, the first one that I did for this company was on metabolism, that sort of thing. Utilizing some of the skills that I had when I was a lobbyist, public speaking, that sort of stuff.
Super cool.
And then some of the other things too, like this coming Saturday, Saturday the 25th, I train out of Transformation Fitness, which is in Lacey. And we are relaunching a program called TF Sports Performance, which is our youth program. So it's for ages 8 to 18.
Okay.
It's focused on kids. It's training and nutrition. And so we're doing a relaunch of that. So that's another thing that's going to be, that I'm going to be working on this year that I'm excited about. And then also in the bodybuilding side of the ledger, but not me competing, I'm helping out with different shows. So the Vancouver Open, I'm helping out with the vendors for that, but then also I've done trophies for Wade for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
The Oregon Open, Dominic is the promoter for that, and I'm going to be helping Dominic out with that, and then Tangi, helping her out with her show. And then hopefully the Sasquatch Pro, maybe we'll be doing some work with Chris and Michelle on that. So so there's lots of exciting things.
Super cool. So you get to travel a lot.
Not a whole lot.
Not a lot?
Yeah.
Just a little bit?
I do love to travel for my sport though. Like that is actually something that I found that I love. Like when I traveled to DC for the Ben Weider show, and it was like you go in there for the show, so it's head down, right? Like, and I did this with New York too, like.
And it's tough because you got to bring all your food, and you have to be like right on point.
But then the day afterwards, it's like awesome because you're in this city, and so you actually get to like walk around.
You're kind of done, right?
And you get to eat everything.
Right, because it's after the show, so you can like go enjoy yourself.
So it's like the local cuisine and like the places that you might have always wanted to go, or you.
So traveling for a show has a super benefit.
It does, and there's different tips and tricks that I've learned too. So, like for example, in DC, the hotel when I went only had they had two. They had 2 microwaves for the entire show. So for everybody staying there. And it's like, well, you know what? Go on OfferUp and buy a $5 microwave and leave it in the hotel room. All you did was spend $5.
Yeah.
Like different things
That's
like
genius.
that. You learn different things like that as you do more of the show.
Literally, I would buy a $20 microwave over having to wait for those 2 microwaves.
Yeah.
That's genius.
I mean, and then you just leave it. You don't have to worry about bringing it back. Or you could resell it if you wanted to. Like, if you're going to be there for a couple of days or something.
Sell it right back on Facebook Marketplace.
Marketplace, whatever it is, yeah.
That stuff works great, all that Facebook Marketplace and stuff. Like, I just sold a guitar on there today. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, if you have stuff. Well, because I'm moving here like in October, so it's like so much stuff. You get so much junk. You
don't realize what you accumulate. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, that was awesome to listen to. Very interesting, especially the political stuff, and then like very awesome that you were able to share about your eating disorder. I think that's really cool because I think it actually helps a lot of people to know that there's a path out of it. So thank you for that. And then I just really appreciate you taking the time to come.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
It was a lot of fun, and actually I learned a lot of stuff. So
sweet.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Joanie.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you guys next time.